Hi, so I'm going to show all of you how to sew the pincushion now. We finished cutting them, did that the other day, and we also finished marking them. So I've got the two marks on the wrong side of this one, and the other piece has the marks there. So that way I can match them when I need to. That was that purpose. So what we're going to do is start with number 3 here. Number 3 says to put right sides of fabric together and then pin around the edges. So we've already pinned before, so you should be familiar with how to do that. Got that. So again, you want the right sides together and you want your marks to be opposite each other. So my dots there have to also be there. And then I'm going to just do the best I can to match up the edges and the corners so that it looks like I can't see any of the underneath fabric, you know, coming out. Everything is lined up perfectly. All right, and the same kind of pinning, actually different pinning. This time you're going to want to pin so that the heads of your pin are coming out. So I'm going to put it on top of it. Oops, I'll put it on top of this so you can see. So you want the pins to come out a little bit from the edge, okay? Now I need to know where these pins are because I'm not going to sew between them. So that's going to be part of your directions on here. It's going to tell you, after it tells you what seam allowance to use, it's going to tell you make sure to start sewing at one dot and end at the other dot. Remember not to pivot around, remember to pivot around corners. So the key thing is here to pin it the right way so you don't sew between these two dots, because that's how we're going to turn it right side out. Okay? If you've made a pillow before, it's kind of like that. So what you're going to do is put a pin straight through the dot, and then you're going to put the pin the opposite direction, and that will remind you, oh, I've got a double pin there, don't sew between the double pins. So I'm going to put the second double pin here, like that. Okay. Right, so that's going to alert me not to sew between there. So now I'm just going to put a few more pins in here. Remember, go in and out. Most of your pins are going to show on this side, only a little bit's going to be showing on the other side. What you don't want to do is this. Okay, that's not a good pinning. It causes it to buckle, and then the pin might start sliding out. So you want to make sure you've got a little bit on the bottom, most of it showing on the top. All right, and then keep rotating it. I would definitely put 2 in on each side, but again, I'm not going to put it here because I'm going to keep that open. So just 2 more on this side, and that should be good to go. And I will have these available for you so you can keep your pins together before you make your own pin cushion, then you can keep them on here. Okay, so we're going to go to the machine now because it says to sew a 3-inch seam allowance. And then I'm going to backstitch the beginning and the end and sew around the pin cushion, making sure to start at one dot, end at the other dot, and then I'm going to pivot around the corners. Okay, so let's do that. So I'm going to take everything I need. You're going to need your bobbin case, bobbin case. You need your upper thread. You're going to need your shears. I'm going to show you what to do with that later. That's that corner maker we were talking about during our preparation for the test. And then I'm going to take my magnetic wand. So I'll let you put the wand here and the scissors over here to kind of keep them out of the way. You can keep your direction sheet over here. And I'm going to quickly thread this machine just for a little bit of a review. So put it on the spool closest to the left side. Make sure you're in the middle hole. Some of the kids were like this when I went around to check you. Make sure you're in the middle hole, okay? And make sure that the thread's coming from the back. And that'll keep you from getting hooked on that groove. All right, you're going to snap it into the first thread guide it through the tension slot, right to left through that thread guide. Make sure your take-up lever's in the up position so you can see that opening, and go straight through, right to left. And then you've got that little hook back here. You're going to go behind the hook and through it. Now I can turn the light on to see better, but don't have your foot riding on the pedal because that could cause an accident. So keep your foot off the pedal. You're not sewing it, you're just threading. Or another little trick is that could have a fuzzy on it, so I would cut a little bit off and give myself a nice sharp blunt area point or area of the thread, and we'll go right through that opening. So be very strategic about that. Hold your finger there like I showed you last time, and you want to carefully get that through there so it doesn't all tangle around the needle. All right, and then that goes under the presser foot. Now this one doesn't, oh, this one does. There should be a little slice in the presser foot, which will help you get it underneath there. All right, the bottom thread, make sure that your thread's going with the holes to the right when you pull it, and the thread's coming off the top. Put it right in the bobbin case, hold it like a cup, slide it into that slot, hold it, pull it around, snap it in the top, and check it. It should be going to the right and has some tension on it. Turn it around carefully. All right, don't let it fall out. Remember I showed you can hold that open if you want. Stick's gonna be straight up, And when you put that in there carefully, it's gonna snap. And then you gotta check it, make sure it's not moving. If it's moving, then it's gonna go like this. Your needle's gonna go down, it won't hit the opening because you don't have it right, and boom, you're gonna break the needle. So you've gotta get that in correctly. All right, now the upper thread that you just did is gonna stay over here to the side, and you're gonna just secure it, not pull on it, secure it. Take your hand wheel, and you're gonna turn the hand wheel so this take-up lever goes down and up one time, down and up one time. Take your hand off, pull on the string, and there's your loop. Put your shears in there, boom. Push to the back, you're ready to sew. Okay, the directions said to sew between the dots, and I've made my double pins where the dots were. So I'm gonna start on this dot, and it's gonna be a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Well, you guys just did that on your seam sample. So remember, this is a 1/4 of an inch, right up against the presser foot edge is a 1/4. 3/8 is the next line, 4/8 is the next line, 5/8 is the edge of the tape. So we want 3/8. So that's the first line to, see, I'll put this down, you can see it. It's the first line to the right of the presser foot. Okay, so I'm going to put my needle in the dot that's closest to me, right? And I'm gonna be right up against that line. So, right like that, okay? And then put your presser foot down. I've gotta be up against that line or else it's not gonna work. Okay, so you're gonna go 5 stitches, oh, make sure nobody's moved your settings, you should remember that. All right, 5 stitches forward, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? Should be between 2.5 and 3. Hold your reverse lever up, go back, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, let go. Now I'm gonna take that pin out now, because I don't need those anymore. Now I have to pivot at the corner. So what I don't want to do is sew all the way to the edge and then pivot, because then I'm not going to have the right seam allowance. So I've got to gauge where to stop. So what I would do is stop and leave the needle in when you think you have the amount you need or more. Lift the presser foot up because your needle's in and check it. Well, I'm going over the line, so I need to do another stitch. So go ahead and do it with your hand wheel. Check it again. That's pretty close. I could go one more, but I think if I go one more, I'm going to be a little bit too much. It's close enough. So if you do that, you know, you have to kind of get, you'll see as you sew, but that's fine. I'm ready, I'm almost right against it. So I'm just gonna continue to go now. Take your pins out. All right, you don't have to go fast. I'm just trying to hurry so you don't have to watch this too long. Okay, getting to another corner. Again, stop before you think you're at the corner. Put the needle in, check it. Well, that's hanging over, so I have to do another stitch. Another stitch, check it. Right on the money. Okay, keep going. If you don't do that, you're going to end up with a lopsided pin cushion, or you're not going to have a seam allowance there. It's going to be like a weak edge because you went over too far, and it's going to start ripping open. So you have to try to gauge that this amount is the same as this amount. So that takes a little bit of trial and error to get that figured out. Okay, so again, I'm holding it down here, and I'm using my fingers to kind of push it a little bit, but you're not pushing it. I'm just kind of helping it along. The feed dog's pushing it. So I mean, it can go by itself, but I do want to steer it. Okay, I'm doing steering. Okay, so I'm going to go one more stitch. Now I know that's not right, so I'm just going to do what I know is right because I've been sewing 100 years, so perfect. Okay, but you might have to do a little trial and error to figure that out until you get used to it. Okay? All right, always take your pins out when you come to them, because if you don't, you're going to either damage the pin or you could break the needle. So you've got to take the pins out before you sew over them. Okay? All right, one more corner. I'm going to do this. I know it's going to be there. Boom. Leave the needle in, turn it, right on the money. Okay, so now I'm almost done. I'm going to my double pins because I'm stopping. I'm not going to sew to here because then I don't have my opening to turn this inside out. So when you get to the pins, I'm going to take them out because I don't want to sew on them. Okay, so that's good. I'm going to back stitch 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go forward, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you have to do that back stitching. And then look what I'm doing. I'm turning the hand wheel to get that take-up lever all the way to the top so that when I lift up the presser foot, it'll pull nicely. And you got this cutter over here. I want to show them the cutter. So you've got this cutter over here that you can use, and that's kind of fun to do. So I would hope you would take an opportunity to do that. And then you want to cut your threads close, because nobody wants to buy something with loose threads. If you were to buy something in the store that was sewn, right? All the threads are clipped. All right, and now we're going to go over to the table again. So that's what it's supposed to look like. Perfect corners, okay? Even seam allowances. I don't have like this thread going to here and then this little weird seam allowance that's on an angle. So try to get it to look like that, and it's secured at the beginning of the end, and I've got that opening. All right, so let's go over here. So you can go over there. I'll be there in a second. Okay. All right, I'm gonna go grab my direction sheet. All right, so the next thing says to clip the threads. We just did that. Okay, clip corners of pincushion, being careful not to clip the thread. So that's the next thing. If I'm gonna turn this right side out, I'm gonna end up with all this bunch of fabric in the corners. So I wanna try to get rid of that before I turn it right side out. So what the trick is to clip the corner out, but not so close to the stitching, and I certainly don't wanna cut the stitching or else I won't even have a corner. So I wanna clip it right here. Do you get that? Okay, I'm still leaving 1/8 of an inch there, which is just a little bit, but I've clipped a lot of that out. So you're gonna do that on all 4. Clip really carefully, like that. 1, 2, 3, and 4, okay? All right, the next step, that's what it's gonna look like. The next step is to turn it right side out. So this might take a little bit of time because especially you kids that have larger fingers, especially the boys, but you can get it done. You've done socks a million times, you'll figure it out. Okay, a little helpful thing. So just use your fingers the best you can to push out as much of the material as you can easily. Okay, now, we talked about this when I was going over sewing tools and notions. This is a corner maker. This is really good to use now. You're gonna stick it in the opening that we left, right? And you're gonna poke it into one of your corners. Not so hard, you break the corner, but you're gonna just do it so that your corner is now looking pretty sharp there, okay? And we cut all that extra fabric out when I clipped the corner, so it should end up helping you and giving you a nice corner. So I got 2 more to do. So don't rush doing this. I've been sewing forever, so take your time because you don't want to break your corners after you've gone to all that trouble to make them so nice, right? Because then you're gonna have a huge mistake if you break the corners. So there you go. So what I would do, now this is looking a little lopsided, so what's happened here is I didn't push it out far enough, so I'm just gonna go in there and push that out and then poke it out a little bit more. Now if you wanna bring this to me at this point, that might be a good idea just to make sure that you've poked it out far enough. You might wanna bring it to me. So that's a perfect square now, that's what you want. So we're gonna go over to the ironing board. Well, does it say to do this? Let's see. Yes, it does. Number 8, press flat, being careful to push seams out all the way. All right, so we push the seams out all the way, so now we're gonna press it flat. So iron should be on. I think I probably would turn it on. Okay, so what you're just gonna do is you're going to press this down. And it might take a little bit because I didn't have the iron on. Just do it both sides. That will get rid of any of the bunchiness that was caused by you turning it right side out. I'm still waiting for it to heat up. It's getting there. And so I put it on like almost all the way because this is cotton. This is not a delicate fabric, so you should be able to get some good heat on it. Okay, but definitely you got a little steam thing up here, so you can push on that. That'll give you a little bit more punch for your efforts here. See how nice that's starting to look? And then I'm gonna do it over here. Now don't burn it. That's good enough. That just means that I have a lot of steam and heat on it. It's gonna get back to the right color. All right, and then of course, turn this all the way to the left so that you're not leaving it on. And don't leave it down because we're safe. We're gonna leave the iron on its heel. Okay, so let's go back over here and see what our next step is. Okay, all right, the next step is to stuff with polyester filling, old pantyhose, or cut up fabric. Well, I'm actually going to get that for you. This is polyester packing fill, fiber fill, which is really good for this. So that's what we're using. And then this last thing here, I've actually sent you another video. So I'm not gonna do 10 right now. We're just gonna finish up with 9, and then you'll have to watch a new video to do 10. Okay, so this one is a little bit time consuming. So what you're doing is you're going to stuff this into the opening, right, the best you can, and you're gonna continue to use the corner maker. That's gonna really help you right now to push this in, because if you don't get the beginning of your stuffing in the corners, you're gonna end up with a pincushion that doesn't have anything in the corners and it just looks like you didn't know what you're doing. So I'm telling you what to do here. All right, when you've got enough in there to work with, you wanna stick your corner in there and shove it into the corners the best you can. Now remember, again, don't, especially you kids that are really strong, don't go too crazy here because you're gonna break the corner. Okay, but see how that corner is puffing out a little bit? It's looking 3-dimensional, that's what you want. All right, so if you don't do it now, it's really hard to do it later when you start getting a lot of stuffing in here. And these have to be stuffed like a football, or else the pins are gonna come out the other side and it's not gonna work like a pin cushion should. You shouldn't be stabbing yourself with a pin cushion. It should be, you know, holding your pins for you, and that way it's safe and they're in one spot. They're not all over the floor or whatever. Okay, so I'm gonna continue. I had to put a little more in. I didn't have enough to do this. So I'm gonna continue to push that in. Okay, so now I've got, I think this one came out when I was doing it. So again, this is gonna take a little bit of time to do this right, but it's well worth your effort because it's gonna look really good. Okay, so these two are done. So I gotta do these two next, but I think I'm gonna push a little more in first before I do these so that I don't lose these, because these are gonna need a little bit more support to hold them in there. So I'm gonna put some in there like this. Okay, and really push that in tight. Don't be afraid to really push it in there, and make sure you're moving it around so it doesn't get all bunched up in the middle, because that's another thing that the students do when they're stuffing. So, I mean, I think most of you have made pillows if you've had Team Living. Okay, I think I'm ready to do the corners now, so I'm going to grab a little bit and I'm going to push it in this corner now, like that. Okay, try to get that so you have a nice firm corner there. This one is trying to come out again on me, so that's what I'm saying. This is not easy. It's a little tricky. You got to continue to look at the ones you just did to see if they stayed put where you wanted the stuffing. So it looks like I've got all four pretty good now. So I'm just going to keep stuffing it until I get it to be the right amount in there, so it's like a football. And then my pins will work. All right, so you're thinking, oh, Miss Hampton, I'm done. Well, you're getting there, but just, you know, put a pin in and see what happens. Okay, that's not done. Okay, so you gotta put a little more in there. I know, you're thinking, I can't get any more in there. Well, you can. Okay, you can and you will, because if you want your pin cushion not to stab you, you're just gonna have to keep at this. And I hope you don't have arthritis in your hands, because it's gonna hurt. So, that's supposed to be a joke. It wasn't very funny though. Okay. All right, I think I'm getting there. Starting to feel pretty full. I step a little more room up at the top. I keep doing that. Okay, that way. And I think we're almost there. So, and I'm going very fast because I don't want this video to be crazy long. All right, so now when I do this, you don't see it. Okay, that's what you got to check. All right, this is pretty good. If you felt this, you would realize, okay, this is starting to feel like a football. And all right, I'm going to put a tiny bit more on the top just so that I don't have this space there. And then I'm going to show you, actually I'm going to stop because that's my next video is going to show you how to close up this opening with hand stitching. We haven't done hand stitching yet. So, well, maybe we have if I'm doing this a different way, but in 2019 we haven't done hand stitching yet. So it'll be a new thing for you. Anyway, that's what you want, okay? Ready to be hand stitched.